What's up, brother?
Hey, feeling good, man.
What's on your mind today, man?
Hey, just, being a strong, masculine black man,
Is that still legal?
Hey, we are not our ancestors. Yeah. But we were talking about, basically masculinity and the strength and just not even necessarily attaching strength to masculinity or femininity, just like what seems to be like an area where we've been watered down. And that's one of the things that I've been noticing, like when we started, really one of the first books I had read, when I started on this journey was Up From Slavery. And I couldn't help but wonder, like, damn, why Booker T didn't have mental health issues? Like, why Booker, he went through trauma, and I started noticing this pattern of, black men that we come from that were like extremely strong, and then now fast forward to today, and it's like, I feel like it's all about, embracing things outside of that. The number one narrative I personally be seeing most of the time online is for black men to be more feminine, or at least more from feminine energy, be more vulnerable, cry, be more open,
Yeah, it definitely could be more of a balance. When we look at where we are in society right now and the images that we see being portrayed through the media, and the image of a black man, and when we look back in time and we think of the images of a Martin Luther King that was nonviolent, some people would say, hey man, that's weak. But you never looked at Martin as being this mentally weak person. It was always exemplified as strength character whenever he talked, whenever he spoke. The same with Malcolm. It was this strength. A lot of our ancestors that came, and we're primarily, just thinking about the 60s. Not even going, well, you started with Booker. Even during that time, we think about the early 20th century and thinking of the mental fortitude. A lot of times we talk about mental health, but we don't talk about what builds mental health outside of going to therapy. And I understand the importance of therapy, but what about the strength builders outside of just therapy? For some people, at a certain point in time, man, listening to a certain hip hop song, oh man, I'm ready. It gets me hyped. Nowadays, for mental strength, and this is just me, my mental strength exercises, because that's what we don't talk about. Our mental strength exercises.
Yeah.
Is, I might go and watch some old Dr. Ben lectures or read some Malcolm, and I feel like, man, okay, it's giving me that strength. It's the same as somebody listening to Tupac.
Same thing, and it's like I became a better person when I started studying the ancestors and studying the story of where we come from, because studying the story of where we come from made me realize that, like, oh damn, I come from that. I'm from the same cloth as Booker T. I'm from the same cloth as Frederick Douglass. I'm from the same cloth of all of that. So it made me embrace the fact that, like, hey, that's how I'm built. I come from the same bloodline that 2 generations pretty much could work sun up to sundown, then go walk 12 miles just to see their child, then go walk back 12 miles. That's a marathon in a night just to make it home before it's time to work.
Yeah, and being inspired.
Yeah, that's inspiring to know that I come from that. So when I realized, and when I started realizing I come from that, I started realizing I come from strength. I come from men that, with nothing, Booker T going to ride to Hampton with, $5, men who did everything to a level of excellence, a guy mopping the floor with a level of care and excellence, like it was, a final exam or something.
And you know what else? They were not selfish.
No.
It was, I want what I want for myself, I want for my people.
Well, see, that's the thing about strength and masculine strength. Divine masculine strength isn't selfish. You know what I'm saying? If anything, being extra vulnerable and extra, emotional as a man, that's actually selfish. Strength is really selfless. When you look at, like,
some people may take what you just said the wrong way.
But hey, they take how they want to take it, because who benefits more from each one? Like when someone is strong and has reserve and their strength, everyone benefits.
True.
When someone is not practicing vulnerability, but being too vulnerable, or frankly just being too weak, that becomes a burden. Like that slack has to be picked up by someone else. So to me, as a nation, as a people, we're better when we're strong as men.
You know what? When you mention the word vulnerability, a lot of times people say, for men, show vulnerability. I want you to show your emotion more. Don't be afraid to cry more. Don't be afraid to exhibit or to let me know what scares you or whatever. But you know what? One of the things that I would want people to be more vulnerable about is admitting when you don't know something. A lot of times, the most vulnerable thing you can say is, "I don't know."
No, that's real.
People they'll exhibit emotions of crying. They'll exhibit all these other emotions. But in this age of social media, a lot of times people don't just say, "Man, I don't know."
Yeah.
They don't exhibit that part of vulnerability of saying, "I don't know, and how can I find it?" Everyone wants to have an answer.
Yeah, and that's the vulnerability that Martin and those guys did show.
Yeah.
But I may not make it there with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just thinking, Martin had a way of including himself in the behavior, that he was condemning, particularly when he was preaching and he was speaking to us, whether it's like, my favorite speech of his, the drum major instinct, but he didn't necessarily reserve look at himself as the answer. Now it is a level of, we got to have an answer for everything. And I think we're just not kind of following the same practices as them who came before us. Like I was saying today, I'm not trying to be like insensitive to, our current struggle. But it's just like, for me, Martin Luther King gave 300 speeches a year, plus not counting the amount of protests that he participated in year to year, not counting his media and press obligations, not counting his preaching and doing sermons and making those appearances, right? So for a guy to work like that and to come from that and to see people who went to a George Floyd protest crying out to their white friends that they're exhausted. Yeah. To me, I understand the sentiment of the message, but to me, that's a very uninformed and uneducated. If you're saying that, you don't have knowledge of self as a black person, because we come from much more than that. So it's like, what are you exhausted about? You ain't been to not near one protest.
They ain't sick the dog on you, a water hose on you.
And even the white allyship, right? We come from an era where white people had to put it on the line. Like we didn't ask our white friends, like when we were asking our white friends in the 60s, march with us, get beat up with us, get attacked by these dogs with us, potentially die with us. Yeah. Now we're asking our white friends to see us, tweet Black Lives Matter with us. Yeah. Put a love emotion when I post about black. It's like, what? Like that. That's not. So it is, to me. It's insulting for us. Like I said, we're not our ancestors. We're the great value watered down version. Yeah, we're not even our parents. Man.
That narrative of "I am not my ancestors." I would have to know what are you basing that on? Because in what era were you not your ancestors? When you say "I'm not my ancestors," are you looking at it from the standpoint of, oh, my ancestors were nonviolent, but you're not busting your gun? Yeah. Are you looking at it from the era of my ancestors were enslaved, where you ain't writing books? You're not doing. I mean, you're not. They were still able to accomplish things that people that say they're not their ancestors haven't even did a tenth of.
And just to backtrack too, for people who don't understand, who maybe don't know the slogan and where the origin of where that comes from. Like, we are not our ancestors. It's really a play on the irony of this narrative that some people on the internet have of, "I am not my ancestors. We'll beat your ass." Like,
almost you can get these hands.
You can catch these hands. Almost as like people having the nerve to say, "I am not my ancestors," as if they're more bold or tougher, or if you try that with us, you will catch these hands or something like that. Even though the only person to bust his gun since his George Floyd incident was a white 17-year-old kid. But, that's a whole different story. Yeah. We're just talking about, like, the idea. So when I say we are not our ancestors, I'm saying in an ironic way, that post is actually right. We are not our
you're
ancestors,
not.
but it ain't because we throw hands. It's because they were operating from a place of power. You made a great point going with Stokely Carmichael and the Black Power and how we went from Black Power to Black Lives Matter. That's a big difference. Like,
Yeah.
going from blackness being power to blackness being something that I'm asking you to see.
Yeah, well, it's like we were
asking you to know matters. That's like, man.
Yeah. It's it goes back to what we were talking about, even in if you look at the record industry, and this is just a metaphor, and now in the instance of podcasting and people want to be independent and people wanting to own content, we own the content, we don't own the distribution, and you can use that same metaphor for us.
Yeah.
We are always the content.
Mm-hmm.
We don't never own any of the distribution. The Black Lives Matter, we're the content.
Yeah.
But we don't own, I don't think we own the distribution of how Black Lives Matter is being distributed in the slogans and how it's done as a whole. We're always the content. And we may own the content because we feel like, okay, blackness is cool. It's an element of coolness to it. So yeah, we supply the content. But the distribution of it, we always have to go to somebody else.
Now, here's the thing, though, too, and just keeping with the same theme of, like, comparing to our ancestors. Okay, Black Lives Matter. I know it's kind of gets confusing because it's a slogan, then it's an organization, and then there was an original one and a new one. But just, putting all of that, cumulatively speaking, Black Lives Matter, right? If we compare Black Lives Matter to the Black Panthers and I'm going to say, like, Black Lives Matter is getting money. Don't tell me Black Lives Matter don't have a bag. The Panthers could raise money. What were the Panthers doing? Panthers was feeding people. Panthers were having a breakfast program. Panthers were showing up to this. Black Lives Matter, why? We can't get a breakfast program? Like, we can't get a scholarship? Where's the Black Lives Matter scholarship program? Where's the Black Lives Matter scholarship for
or even
people who've been... families of people who've been affected by police brutality? Or if y'all want to bribe for the LGBT whatever thing, where's the Black Lives Matter scholarship for the LGBT people?
And even outside of just the Black Lives Matter and looking into the context of our ancestors, the Black Panthers actually had a 10-point program that's still relevant today. I mean, you change a few words and it's still relevant in 2020.
I felt some of it was kind of dreamy, but it was still
it was
had
still
a
10-point program that was thought out. That's still a lot of times when you look at it, it's still relevant to this day and age. A lot of times we throw the baby out with the bathwater.
No,
that was back then. We doing something totally different now.
I think, but what you just described, I think is a fundamental challenge of today's era is the fact that we don't have a clear plan. Like, what is the plan of Black Lives Matter? I know they affirm everybody except the black man. That's a whole different story. But they have their affirm this, and we have that. But what is the plan? What is the goal? Regardless of if the goal is hittable or not. At least I could say Garvey's goal was a black nation and us going back to Africa. Okay, bet. I understand that goal. Martin's goal was full citizenship for us. And then now he had some economic things he's working on. I understand that goal. LeBron, I don't know what he wants. I
A championship ring.
I don't know what the NBA, like, what do they, I mean, in the plan can't be.
But we shouldn't, you know what? We shouldn't even be, and you brought this up before, we shouldn't be depending on NBA players to even make demands.
Well, I mean, even as a people, I don't, to be honest, if you should ask me, Rob, what do you think the plan is? I mean, I have a plan personally, but as a nation, I don't know what the plan is outside of, hey, black excellence, let's do well, let's treat each other right. But I don't, is it like something, Marcus Garvey, what is your plan? Take us back to Africa. Like, to me, a plan shouldn't require a lot of words. You should be able to answer, hey, what is your, at the times of my life when I've been the most focused and the most on point, you could say, hey, Rob, what is your purpose right now? Living the art life. What is your purpose right now? Learning how to code and empower people. It was a quick answer. What is the Black agenda?
Well, that's the thing.
I think on their website for Black Lives Matter, I think they may list out some.
They list out who they affirm. They affirm like LGBT people. They affirm. They don't. It's a weird I don't know what affirm actually means. Like, I know what affirm means, but like if you're saying is what you affirm your purpose, or it was kind of strange when I
can't speak too much on the Black Lives Matter platform. I haven't delved deep into it, so I don't want to. I don't want to misinterpret whatever their platform is, and they may have a plan. But I will say this: when we demand a black agenda from a presidential candidate, how can we demand something that we hadn't even sought out ourselves? Who's the committee that's speaking for me on this agenda? Because everyone may have a different agenda.
Check out your boy Ice Cube, man. He got the contract with Black America, man.
And Cube is in the middle of writing Friday after next after next.
we can't undermine because that's what he did.
I'm not undermining it, but I'm just saying is when we start talking about an agenda, I'm really biased toward the grassroots people that have been actually putting in the work. Yeah, it's easy and I'm not gonna say easy, but it can look convenient for Ice Cube to say, "Hey, I got an agenda for black people." I would only question, "Hey, have you talked to some grassroots organizations that have been doing the work out in the streets?" Because sometimes we negate that there are people that's been doing the work, and some of those platforms may have already been addressed somewhere else.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think so the thing about today's era is, with social media, being popular has become a qualifier. So it's like, even if, which I do think Kim Kardashian probably is a lot more intelligent than people make her out. I don't think Kim Kardashian is a dumb blonde, so to speak, in Hollywood who just stumbled into millions. I think that there is a level of a cunning strategy behind both her business and the way she goes about things. So when a Kim Kardashian, is able to bring something to a president about people potentially being pardoned, well, even though I think she's probably not the best example for this, but it's her popularity. It's those, 50, 100 million followers that make her qualify for that. Now, and I think in those cases, and she's used it very effectively. It
makes her qualified as a celebrity.
As a celebrity, and I'll say, but she is one of the celebrities who actually has been very effective with using her celebrity as far as in these initiatives that she's chosen. But I think in general, like a lot of times we're choosing people who really either are connected to a tragedy or are popular. So George Floyd was Stephen Jackson's friend, so Stephen Jackson is the leader of the movement. Doesn't matter if Stephen Jackson is necessarily educated.
He's kind of thrown into it by circumstance.
We just decided, George Floyd, so you're the leader. And it's like, I think in the past, leaders were vetted a little more, not necessarily like where you had to qualify yourself, but you qualified and you made a name through work. Martin made his name from the Montgomery bus boycott. Malcolm made his name through the nation. It wasn't like, hey, and even like a Dick Gregory, who, like Malcolm didn't like the Dick Gregory activism at first. Malcolm spoke about
against the entertainers.
Against entertainers doing that. But one thing Dick Gregory, I give super props to that. I feel like a lot of our entertainers and celebrities should follow. Is Dick Gregory opened that bag and spent his money educating himself down to the day. Within a couple years before Dick Gregory died, Dick Gregory had a hypothesis about breast milk and the fact that if black women were breastfeeding white people for 7, 8, 9 generations, would that affect the ethnicity? Dick Gregory paid $2 million to get a question answered by the world's leading authorities on breast milk. So like there was still an investment by Dick Gregory into his information.
Yeah, there's a danger when we look toward celebrities and entertainers to be leaders of just put in positions that they probably didn't ask for. And we start thinking and we go down the timeline of black leadership, whether it was chosen or whether it was by will, by force, however, by influence. And we start thinking, and then we get to certain times and it starts to linger. In the 60s, you can roll off names. You know the name. You can say Frederick Douglass as an abolitionist. You can go and you can talk about Booker T. Washington. You can talk about W.E.B. Du Bois. You can talk about people during that time, unsung heroes that may not get as much props or whatever. You can talk about the Marcus Garveys. You can talk about the Kwame Toure's. You get into the 60s. You talk, okay, we know about Martin Luther King. We know about Malcolm X. And then we getting in, we started getting into a certain line in like the 70s and 80s and in the 90s, and it starts to shift, this paradigm shift. And then when we talk about, and then we get to Huey, because Huey, you got to think about who's inspired by who. And this is what I used to do with music. I would say, if I really like this person, I want to research who inspired them. If I like Jimi Hendrix, he wasn't the first man to play the guitar. Who was he listening to? Mm-hmm. If I like someone's rapping ability, he wasn't the first person to rap. Who inspired him? So I want to know who inspired who. So if I'm saying, okay, this person was inspired by this person in activism, this person was inspired by this person. So yeah, it's a reason why we get a Huey. We get a Huey because we had a Malcolm.
Well,
but then after Huey, then what do we get?
Well, I think a lot of what changed is the unification as black people began changing probably in like the 80s and the 90s, where there became like a split. I think the first split was a split of ageism, where it became like this generation of black people saw things dynamically different from that generation of black people. That's even where you get a Dolores Tucker, use a motherfucker instead of trying to help you destroy a brother. Like now there's becoming a clear line. I remember the 90s too, where there was like a clear line between, what the, up to 25-year-olds thought, with the 25 to 40-year-olds,
yeah.
and then with the above them. So, but when you go back to, let's go like to Selma or the Voting Rights Act or those type of things, you go back to a nation of black people where high schoolers, people of college kids, people our age, people our parents' age, were all one. They all were locked in together for the same purpose. So
and it may not have been a big majority, but you know what? I'm now that I'm sitting here thinking, I'm answering my own question. So maybe it was rhetorical when I talked about being inspired and what next. When you look at what happened in the 80s, and we talk about post-civil rights, and hip-hop being the result of post-civil rights, and then groups like Public Enemy and those guys coming in. And then also, then you had the people, you had the Republic of New Africa, you had the Mumia Abu Jamals, you had the Geronimo Jajakas. But what happens is they become what we call political prisoners. So at one point, it was like, hey, just assassinate them, kill them, shoot them, Lorraine Motel them, auto ballroom them, put them in exile. Now it becomes, you know what? Political prisoners. You're in prison based on what? Your politics. So yeah, we have an Assata Shakur, but she's in exile. So now what you're showing the next generation is, no, I don't want to go out like that.
You know the amount of people that I know that are smart, talented, brilliant brothers that will not engage in any idea of any public position or political run because they know their background will be checked. I mean, I know some brilliant brothers, or if their background isn't checked, their life will be lived under a certain microscope. Like, I mean, pretty much like it's kind of like the reward for being like a powerful, polarizing black leader is death.
Yeah,
like,
but
in a lot of cases, in most cases,
it was death, and then it became exile. Well, it was death because Chairman Fred Hampton, assassinated at 21 years old. So we kill him. Anything after that, it's either death or I'm not gonna kill you. You're gonna be locked up, and that's almost worse because now you're locked up, or you're serving 25 years of solitude, hoping that you get out within your lifetime and you don't just die in prison. Yeah. So that sends a message to the next generation. And like you said, well, you're talking about running for political office. I'm just saying the whole idea
talking about social leaders, like guys that probably could be very effective
social activists, leaders. And even now, I get paranoid when someone is chosen, and I'm thinking, where did this person come from? And I hear them speaking, and now they're going places, and they're showing up, and they're speaking, and then I'm like, okay, now this person is the leader. Okay, this person is on the Breakfast Club. This person is on CNN, and now they're speaking for me. Where did they come from?
And then some of the stuff gets real dangerous. And to be honest, some of it is reckless and irresponsible because like there's nothing to answer to. So even like when a perfect example is like there's a book that came out about Malcolm, and this is the first time the guy has no interviews in there with anyone who's still alive. But some people in there had alluded to some homosexuality, which has never been verified, been disputed by everyone who's known him that's still living. And then you have people, like who are black leaders, Mark Lamont Hill, who actually were right. Like, we should embrace the fact that he was. And it's like, where's the responsibility to to us as a people? So I think we don't have a system of checks and balances, and that kind of gets tricky too, because and granted, I mean, just a very highly educated man, but I'm just saying, we don't have there's nothing that you can do once you're in that role.
Yeah, because highly educated can be subjective depending on educated in what and who benefits from your education and who benefits whenever you speak. Because sometimes when you create a box for yourself, and it's really who cutting that check. Yeah, and you can't offend those people that's cutting that check.
And the thing about who benefits, and that's really the thing that I've really been considering now today, when I look at where we're at today, it's like who benefits from us? Therapy has become a religion, like literally. So who benefits from us? And I'm not saying anything's wrong with that, but who benefits from us embracing our feminine energy versus us, embracing our warrior spirit, embracing. I mean, I feel like, to me,
I know some therapists that could use some therapy.
That's a bar.
Their therapy is more marketing and branding, because therapy, in some instances, for some people, is a form of celebrity.
Yeah,
meaning they really have these aspirations to be like an Oprah type, and Oprah's not a therapist, but they're using the therapy, and they read all of the right kind of books, and they say all of the right kind of things, and it's really just marketing and branding. And they really haven't done they haven't done the internal study to say that I don't know. And they'll say, well, the underlying meaning is you got to love yourself. And if you love yourself enough, then you have to love yourself to be a student of yourself. Mm-hmm. And when we always talk about, hey, our disclaimer is we're not scholars. We're here to motivate people to become students.
Yeah.
Some people don't even want to take the step to be students. And the first point of being a student, why not be a student of yourself? Learn yourself first before you go out and profess to be this person that, I can help you.
You know what? And in the spirit of the not talking about problems and without solutions, I guess we could close with what are some things that you feel like? To me, I feel like what we're doing now, I feel like Gentleman's History Hour is something that we did in the spirit of I forget his name, but the brother who created a one man march in Mississippi because people were scared to register to vote. So that guy said, well, fine, y'all register to vote, I'm gonna march myself. Man was killed doing it. But he didn't see himself as too small to make a contribution. I feel like
and that prompted the other march when Martin went out there and Kwame Ture or Stokely Carmichael. They went out there and marched in that spirit. It's the spirit of being a student. And first,
and I think the spirit of no one being too small to make a contribution. That's my thing I want to say. Anyone says, well, okay, you talk about the problem, what do you think is the solution? The solution, make your bed up. The solution, nothing is too small. Like, if everybody contributes a little bit, this is a small contribution, but I believe if we all contribute a little bit, then nobody has to contribute a lot. So that's my solution.
Yeah, and I would say, don't be afraid. Don't let your ego get in the way of you saying that you don't know something. It's okay to admit that you don't know something. Okay. There's nothing wrong with saying I don't know. And also taking the path to find what you don't know, because some people will leave it as, well, I don't know.
So it sounds like what you're saying, just on
ignorance is bliss. When they say ignorance is bliss, because the more I don't know, then I don't have to be accountable once I do know.
But so a lot of people solution, you were saying admit the things that you don't know, and then do your research. Like, be a student to find. Okay.
Yeah, and start with yourself. Start with what you may not know about yourself, because sometimes you may say, I didn't know I would react like that.
That's real. Okay, so we're leaving with some action steps. So what George is basically embrace what you don't know and really be a student of that. And I say the last one would be study the ancestors, man. Because sometimes when you read a story about the strength displayed, you know, it's not about being a black historian, scholar, or nothing, but just, I mean, watch a Dr. Ben video. Watch a, you know, hey, I've been on a Barashango binge. Now, hey, if you're happy with your church home, you may be careful watching that, brother, because you're just going to change some things. But, like, yo, study the ancestors, see that strength. Well, to me, seeing a man who looked like me come through and just do some old just heroic stuff, that's badass, because it's like, damn, you know, okay, only people who I seen that looked like me doing heroic stuff growing up was basketball players, football players, but I didn't see, you know, too much heroic activity outside of that. So when you learn that, hey, a man with nothing, you know, built a Tuskegee, you know, you learn about like some of those struggles, and you realize that you're not reading about some fairy tale character. You're reading about someone that you probably are related to. Yeah. You know, to me, I find that very empowering.
Hey, don't just be Christ-like, be Christ.
Yo, and rest the power to Chadwick Boseman, man.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, most definitely, man. You know what I'm saying?